Welcome back, tribe. So we have one here from China Unvarnished again, just got released. He's got only 11,000 subs. I don't know why. He makes some pretty cool videos. And this one is Hard Work Gets You Nowhere, Why Chinese Men Are Leaving the Labor Force in Mass. So you remember the video we just did where men in the West are checking out of the labor force, especially in America. And apparently China bros are already on that wave as well. Let's get into it.
我就意识到打工是永远没有出路。
When I was 18 years old, I earned...
By the way, if you guys haven't been paying attention, China just entered into a massive stimulus package just to save their economy. Something to the tune of like $76 billion. I mean, they've been selling all the U.S. bonds. They've sold something like $300 billion in U.S. bonds. I don't know. It's crazy shit's going on. They're trying to prop up their market right now. They're basically trying to stave off a deep recession, potential depression. I mean, it's got the market spooked, but the fact that they're stimulating their economy with all these packages, the same way kind of we did during the recession, is causing the markets to pop right now. Like all commodities, all stocks, all cryptos are popping at the moment. But that's not a good sign for the economy. Actually, that doesn't affect real world people, everyday working Chinese, or, you know, if they did the same here, everyday working Americans. So
200 yuan, and at that moment, I realized that working a job was not a way out. During my university years, I attended a wedding, and the opportunity to host this event was recommended to me by a classmate. When I arrived at the venue, I overheard some guests discussing the wedding's expenses, which shockingly totaled over 600,000 yuan. The decorations, flowers, and various setups were stunning, with just one table's meal cost exceeding 5,000 yuan. I thought to myself that if I wanted to host a wedding worth 600,000 yuan, I would need to host at least over 3,000 similar weddings to gather that amount. After the wedding, the newlyweds were very satisfied with my performance, and specifically told me that the 1,000 yuan spent was well worth it. In fact, my classmate earned 800 yuan and left me with 200 yuan. This experience made me realize that if you master resources, you can earn 600,000 yuan just by introducing wedding, even if you don't host them. Nevertheless, I firmly chose to enter the broadcasting industry and became a host because I love this field. Although I knew the industry's prospects were not optimistic, I also opened my own noodle shop. Returning to the topic of 600,000 yuan, I thought at that time that if I opened a noodle shop, it would take at least a year to achieve such revenue. However, now my shop is doing well, and people might question the authenticity of these figures, thinking it's impossible. I warmly welcome everyone to come to my shop and observe every transaction. During university, I audited a lecture on political economics, where the lecturer explained the nature of wages in simple and understandable terms. The main purpose of wages is to ensure the basic survival of workers and their families while helping capitalists create more surplus value. Therefore, if you plan to achieve a class leap through wages, it is nearly impossible. Whether in the future you are forced to work or choose entrepreneurship, you can only find a glimmer of survival in such an environment through continuous learning and self-improvement. I will not miss any opportunity to better myself, and I will continue to work hard and move forward.
I keep telling you, boys, we live in a weird gig economy with part-time jobs everywhere, hardly any full-time work. You need excess amounts of experience just to get an entry-level position. There's ghost applications everywhere for you to fill out with these ghost jobs that don't actually exist. Companies not intending to hire. It's fucked up the way the economy is wired right now. And we know something's off. We know that it's not making sense. We're working more than ever, making less than ever, barely making it at all at the end of the month to try to cover bills. Actually, a lot of Americans right now are depending on their credit cards, the revolving door of credit cards just to make ends meet month to month to month. So we understand that, right? This is why we say, and I've been telling you guys for the longest time, dude, 1099 is freedom. Being your own business owner is freedom. It's not a matter of like, oh, it'd be nice to start a business, or like most businesses fail. You have to get that shit out of your head, because you will never jump up in this sort of class system if you don't start a business. The alternative is you're a wage cuck for life. That's not a good alternative. That's not a path you need to be walking down. The thinking needs to be, I need to start a business, a side hustle, something online, remote work. It's anything that can get me out of the trap of working the 9-to-5 corporate cuck lifestyle, whatever, at the assembly line, in the factory lifestyle, all that shit, the warehouse life. That's got to go, man, because we're never going to achieve freedom that way. We're just another number on a piece of paper, clocking in and clocking out. Hey, Ted, it's time for your lunch break. Go. Now, we don't want to pay you a penny over that we have to, and come back and work like a dog again. Guys, in the weird economics that we're in today with horrendous leadership that we have, it's not just us, it's China, it's all the big economies, everything. This is a debt driven, it's charade money. It's fake. It's monopoly money. This whole thing's a charade. That's why your dollar gets you nothing. The dollar buys you nothing. That grocery cart that you used to fill up with a couple of bucks now gets you like a carton of fucking milk and some egg. Dude, it's gotten much smaller than what you're able to get with the dollars you used to have. Every time you visit the grocery store, gas is expensive. Cars are more expensive. Housing, you got priced out of it by multinational corporations, investment firms. It's fucking wild, bro. I go on and on about this shit, but I'm telling you, boys, I promise you, dude, if there's anything you get from me in this channel, it's thinking of starting a business somehow, some way. I don't have the answers for you. I know starting a business is it. That's all I can tell you. I don't know your life experiences, what you're gifted at, what you've learned. I don't know any of that, but I do know you need to leverage that into some form of secondary income while you're going to your, quote, dead-end job, your normal job, because you're never going to make it out of the struggle, dude, if you don't.
打工人真的有出路吗？
Where exactly is the way out for laborers? As
There
a
isn't.
laborer myself, I feel very lost right now. At this stage, I can only work for others, but in the future, I want to start my own business and become my own boss. The problem is, how do I find that stepping stone for the transition? I have no money on hand, and if I want to make 200,000 yuan, it will take me at least 4 or 5 years. I'm very worried that if one day I encounter health problems, medical expenses could easily cost 200,000 or 300,000 yuan, and wouldn't that mean spending all the hard-earned money from several years in one go? Isn't that just a waste of effort? In fact, what more people are lacking is the startup capital. Otherwise, who would want to go to a factory every day and do 12-hour shifts in such a high-intensity job? Every day is exhausting. Working overtime almost breaks people down, especially in those electronics factories. Summer heat makes you dizzy, and in winter, the cold bites into your bones. No one cares how you're doing, and all the hardships must be silently endured by yourself. All the grievances must be slowly digested by yourself. What can you do after being scolded by your boss?
And you know, them boys over there in China are working like slaves. You remember hearing those stories where they're living in the factories pretty much, and they got little tiny bunk beds, and some companies were even putting netting so that people would be, you know, that they're trying to jump off the building. They don't go press end game on their life. You remember that? Those stories are out there. You can read about it. Companies were installing nets at the base of the buildings to catch people that couldn't take it anymore. Bro, if anybody knows about the day-to-day struggle of a laborer, it's the Chinese dudes.
You can only swallow your pride because you're here to make money. What right do you have to talk back?
哦，你打个毛线的工，你打了几十年的工，你打了个啥？
You've been working for so many years, but what exactly have you achieved? Have you worked yourself into a car loan, a mortgage, or just a collection of various illnesses and occupational diseases?
God damn.
You've spent all your precious youth on working, yet the boss doesn't even give you a glance. If he doesn't like you, he might even throw a few insults your way, and you wouldn't dare say a word. The supervisor watches you work like he's watching a thief. If you slack off, the boss has an excuse to give you trouble. If you work hard, the supervisor might give you a slight raise, making it seem fair on the surface, but in reality it's just exploitation. Not only that, but some colleagues who don't like you often make things difficult for you. Every day in the freezing winter, as soon as the alarm rings at the crack of dawn, you have to get up immediately, not even having time for breakfast, rushing to the factory to clock in on time to avoid the late penalty.
Like an
Every
animal.
day, you live in humiliation, barely scraping by, and when they need you, they will squeeze everything out of you, painting grand illusions for you to fantasize about. But once you are no longer of use, they will heartlessly kick you aside, treating you like garbage. Brothers, listen to me. A man must have the idea of starting his own business.
Please listen to him, please. That guy's living in China where he worked for these factories that, like he said, humiliation. You're a cattle, man. You're nothing but a product designed to make somebody else more money. And then you're given peanuts in comparison while you slave away and break your back, break your body, break your mind, sell your soul for these so-called peanuts while the guy at the top is collecting his third boat, his third home, probably a second mistress, and like flying all over the world, enjoying life with his feet kicked up. There is no other option, dude. I felt that even as a young man in high school, like dead-end jobs, working for the factory, working for a man, working for any corporation is no way to achieve financial freedom and move up in the world. I've always dreamed of starting my own business, and every man should be dreaming of that too. The idea of the company man putting in 20, 30, 40 years for a company and retiring on a fat pension and the company actually caring about you, taking care of you, that's long gone in America, man. Those are dreams of the past. We don't have those strong unions anymore. We don't have loyalty to companies anymore. Companies no longer have loyalties to their people because they're multinational corporations. Most of these places have headquarters outside of the United States or have significant operating income outside of the United States in multiple markets. Like, you understand, like from the top down view, a corporation just looks, that even for a company that started in America, looks at an American worker as some easily replaceable thing because, we'll just hire the bro in India. We'll hire the dude in China. We'll hire the dude in Eastern Europe. He'll do it for a quarter, an eighth, a tenth of the pay. It's fine. And they'll work hard and they'll slave away and they won't complain. That's what it is, bro. When you're at the very top making those kind of bottom line decisions for a company, why the fuck would you hire an expensive American worker? And our government does nothing to keep these companies ashore instead of letting them go overseas. Like, they should be taxed heavily. They should be penalized for trying to go overseas. Every job that escapes the United States should be penalized. If you're trying to hire whatever worker overseas internationally to cut costs, they should get penalized 10x that. So it makes it impossible. That's how you get a strong homegrown economy. But, that's the point of all this, right? It's these businesses that pay for all the campaigns, all the campaign donations. They pick who they want to be at the next presidential seat. It's like the strings, dude, the puppet masters, they're pulling it. They pay for the entire charade. That's why laws get passed in the favor, whether you vote team red or team blue. It doesn't matter. Corporations win out in the end because they pay for both campaigns. They have both horses in the race. That's how you never lose. So when you're that guy, when you're those kinds of kingmakers, the dark suits enter the room and tell you what's what. Yeah. Hey, we don't want to hire American workers anymore. They're too damn expensive. So we're going to move overseas. By the way, we're going to shelter the corporation and headquarter it somewhere in Ireland because the tax rate is far more advantageous for us than here in the United States. And boom, there goes billions of dollars in taxes that they don't have to pay. That could have went back into the U.S. economy, making your community better. On and on it goes, dude. The greed and the corruption is all-time high. And for the average worker, the average man, we're living in near destitution.
What if you succeed? Working for others will only trap you in a vicious cycle of poverty. Even though you might be very poor now, if you don't dare to take the risk of starting a business, you're destined to struggle in poverty for the rest of your life. Think about it. After a whole year of working, what have you really earned?
我发现上班没有意义呢，是因为我当年当社畜的时候，有一天突然
I find that working is meaningless. It was during my vacation years ago when suddenly a thought flashed through my mind one day. I tried to simulate the possibilities for future development. After completing the simulation, I was completely stunned, realizing that working for most people is almost worthless. Today, I plan to present that simulation from back then, as it remains applicable even now. First, it's important to emphasize that if your goal is to pursue wealth and a free life, then working in a job is almost meaningless. Of course, some people might not have such high aspirations and can live quite well working a regular job. This is understandable. After all, everyone has different pursuits, and there doesn't need to be a unified answer. Additionally, there are indeed those who excel in the workplace, suitable for striving within a system, becoming what is termed a worker emperor. However, it's worth noting that the workplace is like a pyramid. The higher you go, the fewer people succeed. Such examples are ultimately rare. Now let's get into the specifics of the simulation. Suppose you are an academic achiever, ranking at the top with an impressive resume that might even shock people when they see it. This type of person typically enters high-end industry, such as research, management consulting, finance, or high-level data analysis, all high-paying positions. In this case, although you can earn quite a bit of money, potentially hundreds of thousands or even millions, what is the cost? You end up so busy that you have no time to rest. When companies offer you a high salary, they naturally expect to extract more value from you. The end result is that while you earn money, your health deteriorates and you have no personal time. So, what's the point of working so hard? Therefore, for those seeking freedom and wealth, such jobs have little meaning. Of course, I understand this is the dream job for many, but the price is indeed the loss of freedom and health.
And factor in now a family, which a man doesn't have to drive him to be a slave cuck like this anyways. At least you felt good about breaking your body because it meant something. It meant you put food on the table. It meant your wife could wear some nice clothes. Your kids were clean. They had food when needed. The fridge was full. The yard was nice. The house was well kept. Car well maintained. You had some fucking pride at least for breaking your back. Now you don't have nothing. They expect you to do all this while treating you like shit and also having no skin in the game. You have no family. They've completely corrupted culture and dating. They've made it extremely toxic. And I have even turned to toxic masculinity and the way they look at men today. And on top of the DEI corporate policies that we have here in the West, it's absolutely insane to be a man today. No wonder so many dudes are doing the whole lying flat or silent quitting and all that shit. Men checking out of the workforce in mass. Look at the system, man.
Next, in another scenario, if you are an ordinary person, you are likely to become a cog in the machine at your company.
Yeah.
The biggest problem with being a cog is that you are easily replaceable, and the career crisis at age 35 is almost unavoidable. The reason is simple. As a company operator, if there are younger employees who require lower salaries and have fewer personal issues, they will inevitably replace older employees. After all, the core goal of a company is profit, not to provide a retirement home for employees.
Yep.
So, ordinary people working hard in companies, if your replaceability is high, often end up being eliminated, just like tea leaves being dumped out. That's the inevitable result driven by profit. Knowing this yet continuing to push through only leads you to the predicament of being boiled alive in warm water. In the last scenario, if you have weaker overall abilities, your position in the workplace becomes even more precarious. You will become a more mechanized and easily replaceable cog, facing fiercer competition for position, and the crisis arrives even sooner. This type of work is not only brutally competitive but also, in the long run, serves no meaningful purpose, leaving you in a vulnerable state in old age. Thus, my conclusion from the simulation is, regardless of how strong your abilities are, if you hope to have both wealth and freedom, then working at a company will not help you achieve this goal. I know some small business owners who earn tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands annually. They may not have outstanding educational background, but they have persisted in a specific vertical field for a long time, building a loyal customer base. Although they are busy, their time is relatively flexible. They can work intensively for a period and then take a break, having time for gatherings or hiking. Their life state is actually much better than that of those high-salaried, busy white-collar workers. In summary, after my simulation,
I can attest to that. When I started my business in remodeling and construction, in the very beginning, up front, worked like a dog, 80+ hour weeks. I had no semblance of weekends, didn't go out with anybody. My friends lost complete track of me, would text me, "What happened to you? You just disappeared." I was busy grinding and it paid off. By 27, I made $100,000 in 1 month. And that was the first month of many. I started achieving financial freedom. It took a whole lot of work, but what's incredible about killing what you eat, being in the business of business, an entrepreneur, is that there's a linear growth through the effort you put in and the reward that you get back. The more effort, the more the reward. Okay. That steady paycheck is a dream killer. It's comfort. It's the worst drug you could give a man, comfort.
Back then, I realized that working is of little significance for the vast majority of people. Ultimately, ordinary individuals must possess a skill that can support them long-term, selling their abilities directly to the market rather than through an intermediary company. Understanding this, we should focus on our ultimate goals and work towards them daily. That is a meaningful life.
我打工打了20年。
In the past
Amen.
20 years, I have been working hard, always yearning to achieve something, to gain recognition from others, to let my parents enjoy their later years in peace. I wanted my child to have a happy childhood and to bring happiness to my wife. However, despite working hard for 20 years, I have not been able to achieve these goals. No matter how hard I tried, all I could do in the end was to meet their basic needs. When I turned 38, I realized the gap between myself and the people around me was growing wider. Every time I returned home and saw my father, who is over 60 years old, still doing hard physical labor on a construction site, I knew in my heart that my life needed a complete replanning. At this age, I can't afford to lose anymore, and I must pick myself up. Since I don't have good speaking skills, I'll practice. Since I don't know how to sell, I'll set up a stall to learn. Since I have fallen so far behind my peers, I must do everything I can to catch up, running as fast as I can. If I don't work hard and fight, my later years will be as ordinary as my father's. During the more than 3 years of running my shop, I have worked almost non-stop day and night, giving it my all. During this time, I have been recording my tough entrepreneurial journey every day. I hope that my sharing can be helpful to everyone, and I hope you can also bravely pursue your own dreams.
刚刚去面试了一份月薪5000的工作。
A few minutes ago, I just went for an interview for a job with a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan. Unexpectedly, I was directly rejected because of my age. Walking out of the company gate, I couldn't help but laugh at myself. 5 years ago, my base salary was still 30,000 yuan per month, and now I can't even find anyone willing to hire me for a 5,000 yuan job. I am about to turn 40, a typical post-80s, a working person who has fought hard from the countryside to a first-tier city. Some say, at 30, one establishes themselves. At 40, one has no doubts. But my experience is quite the opposite. Nearing 40, I am more confused than ever before, unsure of how to move forward, and feeling like I have become a burden to my family and friends. I once worked as a head of business development in a foreign company, with an annual salary of 500,000 yuan. During that time, I was busy every day, attending endless meetings, preparing endless PowerPoint presentations, and dealing with various team evaluations. On the surface, it seemed glamorous, but only I knew how much pressure the job brought. If I failed to meet performance targets, I could be fired by the company at any time, and working there was like walking on thin ice. In pursuit of a better future, I made a bold decision during the pandemic to quit and start my own business. Although the initial vision was beautiful, it didn't last long. Due to my limited abilities and insufficient understanding, by 2023, I couldn't hold on anymore. I had to close the store, lay off employees, and declare the failure of my business. Now that I'm re-entering the workforce, I can't even secure a job with a monthly salary of 5,000 yuan. I know very
Bro, there's no going back. Like, once you start a business, you're done. You know, the job market won't reward you for coming back anyways because they see the gap in your employment. It's so messed up, dude. It's a do or die situation. When you start to get into the whole notion of, you know, I want to start a business, remove plan B, guys. Use the jobs you currently have to sustain you and pay for your bills. Every waking moment you have after getting off work, forget everything else that you're doing. Just keep your health intact, get good sleep, right? Eat clean. But work on that side hustle that will set you free. Work on that business, your side business, until it becomes your main business and it replaces your salary from the job you have. There is no other way. There really isn't, dude.
well that my previous job in the foreign company was probably the ceiling of my career. Now, as I approach 40, I can't compete with young people, such as driving for Didi. The job options are getting fewer and fewer, and I can't even compete for a security guard position with the older men guarding the gates. But to be honest, from a career perspective alone, my past performance wasn't too bad. After all, I've worked for more than 10 years and have saved some money. However, in a moment of rashness, I chose to start a business during the pandemic. When the company was struggling the most, I took out all my savings and my housing provident fund to pay the employees' salaries. At the moment of my business's failure, the millions of yuan I had worked so hard to save, along with more than 200,000 yuan in my housing provident fund, all vanished into thin air. Perhaps over 1 million yuan is nothing to the rich, but to me, it was the result of over 10 years of hard work. Plus, I came from the countryside, with no rich background to support me. Who would have thought that I could lose everything and return to square one in such a short time? Do I regret starting a business? Actually, I don't. During the entrepreneurial process, I learned a lot, and it made me more mature mentally. Although I haven't had any income in the past few years, this experience has taught me how to face difficulties and failures. By rights, at my age, I should be successful in my career and have a happy family. But the reality is that my life has hit rock bottom. The reason I am sharing these embarrassing experiences is not to seek sympathy, but to inspire and push myself to move forward. I am very clear that I have no support to rely on, and I can only depend on myself. I have no way out, so I must become more resilient and keep moving forward.
打工，你一年连10万都赚不到。
Imagine if you had to rely solely on a job to make a living, and you couldn't even earn 100,000 yuan a year. Suppose your monthly salary is 8,000 yuan, with an annual income of around 90,000 yuan. But in fact, this monthly salary of 8,000 yuan is already considered relatively high in many cities. However, after deducting daily living expenses and various costs, you may only have about 3,000 yuan left in savings each month. In other words, even if you earn 8,000 yuan per month, your annual savings would still be less than 100,000 yuan. Now, consider the various needs in real life, such as marriage, buying a car, buying a house, saving for a betrothal gift, dating, etc. These expenses would be around 1.5 million yuan at the very least. If your family doesn't provide any financial support, then with a monthly salary of 8,000 yuan, it's difficult enough to cover your living expenses, let alone save enough to buy a house or a car. Even if you save every penny and spend nothing.
So he's talking about 3,000 yuan is $427 in the current exchange rate. You're not even able to save 100,000, which he's talking about is $14,000, guys. $14,000. And that's before he's talking about the expenses of having a wife, child, and all those necessities that are required for that.
It would take you at least 15 years of work without eating or drinking just to save 1.5 million yuan.
Okay.
Women don't need to save money. They can directly ask men for betrothal gifts, a car, and a house.
Yep.
But brother, you are a man. If you work a job that pays 8,000 yuan a month, after deducting all expenses,
8,000, for guys wondering, is $1,141. That's a high salary in China. Just so you guys get an accurate idea of what they're working with over there.
you may end up with only 3,000 yuan in savings each month. So, what are you going to do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, holy shit. Looks like the slaves started opening the eyes and reveling against the executioners. Big Dragon starts shaking, forgetting his size. Most companies practice favoritism or nepotism. You might be the best employee, but your boss will only work you to death instead of advancing your career. I can only imagine how worse it is in China. And this one says the pressures in society is increasing, especially during times of economic downturn. Boy, oh boy, are we in an economic downturn. We just cut interest rates by 50 basis points. China just did the same, plus injected tens of billions of dollars into their economy and already promised to inject much more if needed just to keep their economy afloat. That's not a sign of a healthy economy, guys. China could drag us into, or we just get another bad report at the end of the month, right? For manufacturing, jobs, whatever it is that's coming out. All the economic indicators, we are headed for very hard times. The bubble is starting to pop. It's going to grow big, have one last hurrah because of these interest rates being lowered. But I'm telling you guys, we're about to pay for all the inflationary spending, all the dollar printing, all the fucking money floating around in the economy that shouldn't have been there, coupled with the bad leadership getting off the gold standard, driving up our debt to 35 trillion. We got no way to pay for it. Americans are living check to check, can't even save $400 in their bank account for an emergency. It's going to be bad this time. It's probably going to make 08, 09 look like a walk in the candy store. I don't know. I mean, we have so many anecdotes. Like, please share in the comments, like anecdotes that you've been seeing around your neighborhood, around your city, right? Around your business, if you're a business owner, around your company, if you're working. I'm talking like layoffs or hours being cut or the company's profits lowering or something. Any signs of bad economic activity, not enough orders coming in from other vendors, whatever it is, stuff that you're seeing. Please, can we like do an aggregate of just how bad it is on a whole? And that way we'll see. We'll be able to piece together a good image of how much this puzzle is actually broken and what it means for the future. Let's try to read the tea leaves here. Anyways, appreciate you guys tuning in, seriously. Guys that have been joining in the private community and being a part of the calls, dude, they've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to talking to you guys. We're going to cover a book, by the way. For those that were saying thank you so much for Psycho-Cybernetics, here's another book I recommend. It's one of the shortest books you could actually buy, but it has like probably the most heavy-hitting self-improvement mentality change type of content that you could possibly find. Here it is right here. And it was recommended by a Greek gentleman that I interviewed on this channel long ago, a couple of years ago when I was doing the interviews. He said at the end of the interview, if there's anything you'll remember, it'll be this book when you buy it. You were right, brother. If you do see this video, if you guys know what I'm talking about, go watch that video. Gentleman was interesting. Super jacked Greek dude. Looks like he fucking fits in a Spartan helmet. So this is the book, U Squared. Incredible, by the way. We'll be reading it together with the community and discussing. And if you do need something like that to be around a group of men that's actively pursuing different ways to make money, escaping the rat race, the trap, then do join us. I post these conversations, part of them at least. I keep the other half private just for the community, but go on the second channel, Bo Refik, and take a peek around, man, and see the kind of work we're doing as a community. I guarantee you, you may be surprised, and it may be something you're looking for and maybe something you benefit from. Either way, guys, let me know. I'll be interested in seeing the comments here because it ain't looking good for China, but it ain't looking good for anybody else either. Take care, everyone.